If you know the Little Big Planet franchise, then you probably know that the core of the series was based around the creativity of the players, and the game served mostly as a vessel to give the players tools to make their own levels. Interestingly, this didn't manifest in a game that had badly designed or boring levels. A lot of time and effort and care went into creating the story mode of the Little Big Planet games to make them as charming and enjoyable as possible. They may not have been the most challenging levels ever seen, but they were still fun. On top of that, the games were accessible. Whilst you could get rewarded for playing the level well by avoiding dying or finding all the collectibles, the game was still designed so that pretty much anyone of any skill threshold could play and beat a level. Then, when you were done, you'd head over to the creative mode and use the various materials, tools, items and stickers you found in the levels to put together your own masterpiece, and with each game release, the creative mode only became more in depth. Again, this series held true the idea that the player's own imagination and creativity should be celebrated, and thus the game provided a canvas for players to be creative. So far, there are 3 Little Big Planet titles that did not include their own creative mode. There's Run Sackboy Run, a mobile release that existed simply to promote the main game, Sackboy's Prehistoric Moves, which basically just existed to give the PlayStation Move something to do, and now Sackboy, a big adventure, which unlike the other 2 here is a fully fledged, fully priced game released for the PS4 and PS5. So the question is, why the hell? I've been a fan of the Little Big Planet IP from the early days of the PS3, being the first game I really played on the console. I was utterly obsessed with it to the annoyance of every human around me. I loved the sequel as well, not only for building on the creative mode and including tons of new tools to play with, but for also upping the ante when it came to the story mode with fully voiced characters, more richly designed levels, and it was absolutely bursting with even more charm and love than the first game was. The third game was a technical improvement. Again, it offered more tools for the creative mode, which was always nice, though I found the story mode to be lacking for the first time in the series. Even more so than the story mode of Little Big Planet Karting, and that's not really a fair comparison because Little Big Planet Karting was bloody awesome and its story was actually alright. I have a lot of love for the intellectual property, and the first thing I noticed about Sackboy, A Big Adventure, was the curious absence of the words Little Big Planet in the title. Leading up to the launch, all I really knew about the game is that it was a more dedicated 3D platformer, and I was down with this. I love me a 2D platformer, don't get me wrong, but I was excited to see what the game did with the shift. Naturally, I was thrilled by the prospect of making fully 3D levels, which you could do in Little Big Planet Karting, but the caveat is it's a karting game primarily, so it was difficult to do anything except races. Of course, that didn't stop other people from making full-on RPGs and other kind of games with the tools at hand. I just wish we had a more dedicated 3D creative mode for a Little Big Planet game. Mostly because I was nowhere near good enough to figure out how those people did it and then do it myself. I was thrilled by the prospect that I'd get that soon. Guess what I discovered when I played the game though? Guess what was conspicuous by its absence? Go on, guess, I bet you can't. If you enjoy these videos, then don't forget to like, leave a comment and subscribe for future videos. If you want to, you can support the channel further by going to patreon.com/RonicaReviews and pledging £1 a month, which will help me to keep building the channel and bringing you content, and it will also get you some nifty benefits. You'll get 24 hours early access to new reviews, a shout out at the end of videos, and you'll get to suggest new games for me to cover. But what if you want something more tangible back for your support? Then you want to head over to ronicareviews.teemo.com to get yourself some merch. We have several t-shirts for you to browse, a couple of tote bags, and even a jigsaw puzzle. Also, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like. You'll find links to everything here in the description below. Now, on with the video.
It's the creative mode that's missing, isn't it?
By the golden testicle of Godfrey the Grafted, however did you guess?
Well, it certainly wasn't the fact that you have all the grace and subtlety of a horny lion with violent diarrhea.
Why do so many of these bits involve loose stool?
Why do you still not have anything worthwhile to offer?
Go fuck yourself.
So yeah, the game is missing the main element upon which the previous games sold themselves. An odd choice to me, though I did glance at Google and the game sits at mostly positive reviews, so the question we're left is thus: does what the game offers truly make up for the fact that it's lacking something previously so core to its franchise? Well, let's have a look at this one, shall we? And let's ignore for the fact that until recently the game was a PS4 and PS5 exclusive, so that only PS4 and PS5 players could play and review the fucking thing. Sackboy, A Big Adventure follows Sackboy, a sack person living with his little sack friends being all creative and shit. Real nice of the game to dangle over us the very thing that you failed to offer us this time around. Sorry, that's a bit too negative, isn't it? Sackboy and his little friends are living their best lives when a clown demon monster thing named Vex arrives. He kidnaps all of our mates to do something nefarious with and tries to take us as well, but we manage to escape. Well, just barely. Shortly after, we meet Scarlet, a bigger sack person who explains to us that Vex is a very naughty man, demon, toy thing, and that he is spreading the uproar which threatens Craftworld.
Wait, what the fuck is Craftworld?
Oh, it was revealed in Little Big Planet 2 that the actual name of the planet that the Sack people live on is called Craftworld, not Little Big Planet.
Yeah, God, learn your Little Big Planet lore.
Sure, that's not a massive waste of time and energy.
We're given a pat on our little sack bum and then set off into the world to gather Dreamer Orbs. These fulfill the role of the video game MacGuffin which we need to gather to unlock the ability to progress. Think Power Stars from Super Mario. There you go. They're hidden throughout the various levels and we need to find a minimum number of them before we're able to proceed with the game, and all I can think is, most of these only seem to exist to encourage the player to explore the levels.
Oh, I know where this is going. Previously, this encouragement would come from the game's hiding cool items and tools that you need to make your own shit. Personally, I make my own shit in the toilet. But with the absence of dedicated creative mode, devs had to fall back on the old design cliches to get the players to look around for more than 5 minutes.
Why, what an astute observation there, you delightfully imaginary critter you. You have earned a reward of your choosing.
I'm going to defenestrate the PS5.
As you wish.
My ears are burning. Wait, what was that now?
Oh crap, I actually needed that to play games with.
Ooh, I'll fix that.
Okay, but don't turn it into some sort of crime against nature.
We both know I cannot promise that.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, this isn't to say that exploring the levels isn't inherently fun to do. In fact, let's nip that one in the bud right now. Sackboy, A Big Adventure, is a fun enough video game as video games go. The game still has a visual charm. The Little Big Planet games always had a handmade look to their aesthetics, from the player character being a literal toy, to the items found in the levels being made of papers and cardboards, as well as miscellaneous real objects. In the original game, the levels looked like something you could put together in your garden if you wanted to. As said above, visual charm is still present in all the levels, and they're still quite well put together with a lot of intricate moving parts and some straightforward but competent platforming challenges. Nothing that the game offers is new by any means, but it does do everything well and it deserves recognition for that, which I'll gladly offer. I rather enjoyed exploring the levels, even when I knew all I was going to find as costumes. See, there are still prizes you can find in the levels, like in previous Little Big Planet games. They're just always going to be costumes or maybe an emote or two. Look, I love costumes and dress up and all that, you should know this by now, but once I found the witch hat early on, I was satisfied with my look and I never felt like changing it, so I didn't really care if I missed a piece. I'd go and get them if they were obvious, but I wasn't actively seeking them out after a while. I was just getting on with the levels. Still though, the levels were made in such a way that exploring them was still fun like in prior games. Overall, the platforming is really good. I'm not overly keen on the combat elements because Little Big Planet doesn't really do health bars. You can take one hit, but the next hit will kill you. It's not particularly deep, which is a shame because I could have done more with this. Still, when you die, you just pop back to the last checkpoint, which aren't usually too far apart. The levels aren't exactly vast. They look bigger than they really are. If you die like 4 times, then you lose the level, which is another staple of the franchise, and this game feels way more forgiving. It's probably due to the fact that unlike in previous Little Big Planet games, you can take 2 hits rather than just 1. And if you've lost a life, you can often find another one lying around a level somewhere. I'm not really sure if the additional forgiving nature is a good or bad thing, it simply is a thing the game is. Still, I do enjoy how creative the levels are. Some levels have this thing where enemies and objects move to the beat of the licensed background music, which was kinda neat. There's this one late game level that used Britney Spears' Toxic, which always reminds me of the Eccleston era of Doctor Who, so it won me over quickly. That'll probably make sense to you if you're a Doctor Who fan, the rest of you get to suck it. You might have noticed that I've not really used any late game footage. I've played this game to the end before, you beat Vex and then everything is lovely again. Honestly, this time I just hit a point where I just couldn't be asked to go further. Shame really, because some of the late game areas are cool enough to look at. A good question you might now be asking is, do I like the game for what it is enough to recommend it, or am I going to let my bitterness win out? Well, despite the fact that the game doesn't offer one of the main things that made the IP what it was to begin with, and I am still bitter and disappointed and sad and a little bit hungry, that last one is less relevant. I cannot deny when a game does something well. The main levels are quite well made, the platforming is intuitive, the controls are responsive, and Sackboy is reliable enough. He'll grab ledges consistently, his hitboxes don't take the piss, and he is overall well programmed. The game is a fine example of a good and charming platformer, and I can see why the people responded well to it. I do take issue with the store page listing the game for $59.99, that's taking a truckload of piss.
Hey, it's the standard price for games these days.
Doesn't make it not bollocks.
Had the game had a creative mode, then yeah, this price would probably be alright, but I've bought many games at this price, but you want to know how many of them I would say were worth it?
All of them?
Two of them. 2 games. That's 2 games out of dozens that I've bought with a similar price tag that actually turned out to be worth the money. One was Elden Ring, because of course it was, and the other was The Outer Worlds. Both of them being massive and content stuffed and just wonderful. Sackboy: A Big Adventure does 3D platforming well, I will not deny this. It has a nice and consistent visual style and is quite an accessible product and maintains the same charm that the prior games of the IP offered. However, it's not anything we haven't seen before, and given the attachment to the IP and the abandonment of one of the main selling points, well, I just don't think it was worth 60 quid. 20 quid maybe. That's a better price price in my humblest of opinions, so if you see a copy lying around for 20 quid, yeah, I say go for it. It's not a bad way to kill some time, but whilst I don't have kids myself, I can imagine it'd probably be a good game for kids to play. It has a very kiddie-friendly theme going about it, so there you go. So those are my thoughts on Sackboy: A Big Adventure. It's not bad, it does feel a bit lacking in one specific, fairly significant way, but when examining the game for what it is and what it wants to be, I say it achieves it well enough. I have to stress it's not a bad video game by any means. If you're just looking for ideas for a fun game to play with the Sprogs, or just something cute and straightforward for yourself, then I'd quite happily suggest it. Just don't pay 60 quid for it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed these last couple of weeks of what are basically filler. They're filler reviews. Next week we're doing something more significant, I can promise you that. Anyway, we're done here. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Yeah, there's nothing else to say. I was gonna go on, but there's nothing more to say. I'm gonna go eat some biscuits. I brought them in for the crunchy bit earlier, and now I'm just gonna eat more. And I don't know why I have to make that sound when I eat. I'll see you later.